Book nibbles. Big ideas, small bites. Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking is a raw, piercing memoir that captures the way grief disorients, distorts, and redefines reality. It is her account of the year following the sudden death of her husband, the writer John Gregory Dunn, and the simultaneous life-threatening illness of their daughter Quintana Roo. What Didion gives us is not a conventional story of mourning, but a searching and honest exploration of how the mind bends under the weight of loss, how it clings to rituals and refuses to let go of the impossible, and how language itself becomes both her anchor and her betrayal as she struggles to articulate what feels unexplainable. She calls this magical thinking, the instinctive, irrational hope that death can be undone, that if she does or avoids certain things, her husband will return, that she has not yet crossed into the finality of his absence. The memoir is at once deeply personal and yet universal, showing how grief and denial entwine in ways that defy logic but speak directly to human vulnerability. The story begins on December 30th, 2003, a date etched into Didion's life as the evening John collapsed at the dinner table. They had just returned from the hospital where their daughter was lying in a coma with pneumonia that had spiraled into septic shock. The atmosphere was already one of exhaustion and concern, but home was supposed to be a space of reprieve. Then, without warning, John slumped in his chair, victim of a massive heart attack. For Didion, this moment fractures her world into a before and after. She describes the quiet shock, the sense that she was suddenly removed from ordinary reality, and how automatic actions carried her forward. Calling 911, riding in the ambulance, answering the paramedics' questions, as if she were watching a movie of her own life. This detachment becomes a recurring motif. Grief often manifests not as wailing or collapse, but as a strange clarity, a hyperfunctionality that masks an underlying refusal to accept what has occurred. Even after John's death is confirmed, Didion cannot fully believe it. She continues to leave his shoes by the door, unwilling to give them away because he would need them when he comes back. She avoids discarding certain items, clinging to the physical tokens of his presence. This is what she labels magical thinking, a protective refusal to let the mind process what the heart cannot bear. The book documents how this irrational logic pervaded her year. The thought that she must not tempt fate, that she must behave in a way that would allow John to walk back in, that words and actions might hold talismanic power over reality. She is aware of the absurdity even as she surrenders to it, and that awareness deepens rather than diminishes the poignancy of her recollections. Throughout her reflections, Didion moves back and forth in time, weaving in memories of her life with John. Their decades together as partners in writing, editing, traveling, and raising their daughter form the bedrock of her identity. She describes their rituals: evenings spent reading at the dining table, shorthand conversations filled with references only they understood, and the constant rhythm of companionship that structured her days. These intimate recollections serve as a counterpoint to the silence she now faces, emphasizing how intertwined her life was with his. Grief is not merely the absence of a person, but the collapse of an entire world of habits, signals, and meanings. The medical crisis of Quintana adds another layer to the memoir. At the very moment Didion is grappling with John's death, she is also caring for her daughter in a state of medical uncertainty. Quintana cycles in and out of hospitals, first battling pneumonia, then developing blood infections, later suffering a fall that leads to a brain injury. Didion's days become consumed with ICU visits, consultations with doctors, and the grinding helplessness of watching a loved one's body falter. The grief for her husband and the fear for her daughter intermingle, creating a surreal state in which Didion is suspended between two emotional poles. She must somehow be both caretaker and mourner, sustaining herself through routines while her world threatens to unravel. This tension amplifies her magical thinking, for she feels caught between loss and hope, unable to resolve either. The memoir also reflects Didion's trademark precision with language. She quotes medical reports, charts, and clinical terminology, using them as anchors in the chaos. Facts, she believes, can be a form of safety if she can understand exactly what happened physiologically to John. Then perhaps she can reassert control over the narrative. She rereads books on sudden cardiac arrest, combs through medical journals, and revisits the chain of events leading to his death. This attempt at rationalization underscores the human impulse to seek patterns and causes, to believe that if we know enough, we can undo or prevent disaster. Yet, even as she catalogs the facts, she recognizes the futility. Knowledge does not bring John back, nor does it soothe the absence. Still, the act of writing itself becomes her method of survival, a way to order chaos and give shape to the void. A central motif in the book is time. Didion describes how grief warps it. The past and present bleed together, memories intrude into the now, and the future feels unimaginable. Ordinary chronology collapses under the weight of loss. She recounts the first anniversaries, his birthday, their wedding date, the day of his death, each one a marker of how life continues without him, yet also a reminder of how fixed the loss is. She notes how grief is not linear, how one moment can feel functional and the next utterly broken. The expectation that time will heal feels like a cruel illusion. Instead, she experiences waves of unpredictability, moments of disassociation, sudden tears, and numb stretches. In this way, she captures the non-narrative, non-progressive reality of mourning. Another recurring theme is the fragility of assumptions. Didion reflects on how she and John, like many couples, carried a quiet belief in their shared permanence. Even when aware of mortality in the abstract, we live as if tomorrow is assured. She recalls conversations they never had, plans for what she would do if he died, instructions for practical matters, because to imagine his death was unthinkable. The sudden rupture exposes how ill-prepared most people are for the randomness of catastrophe. This recognition lends the memoir a philosophical weight. Didion is not just chronicling her grief, but interrogating how humans construct their lives on fragile illusions of control. Literature itself becomes a touchstone throughout the book. Didion cites poetry, plays, and biblical passages, not only as sources of comfort, but as markers of how human beings have always tried to articulate grief. She recalls lines from Gerard Manley Hopkins and W.H. Auden, finding in their rhythms both solace and resonance. At times, she critiques how culture portrays mourning, noting the cliches that fail to capture its actual texture. For her, grief is not neatly poetic. It is messy, irrational, obsessive, and relentless. And yet, through writing her own account, she creates a work that bridges the gap between chaos and clarity, giving readers a window into the unfiltered reality of loss. The narrative also confronts the role of memory. Didion relives vacations with John, dinners, and arguments, holding on to them as if rehearsing the life they had shared. Memory becomes both a sanctuary and a torment, for each recollection affirms his presence in her past, while underscoring his absence in the present. She describes how certain places, New York apartments, Malibu houses, restaurants they frequented, become haunted with echoes of him. Even the most ordinary routines carry an ache, setting the table for one instead of two, returning to a quiet home after errands. In her honesty, Didion captures how grief infiltrates the mundane, how it alters even the smallest rituals of daily life. What makes the memoir especially compelling is its refusal to offer easy consolation. Didion does not end with a sense of closure or redemption. Instead, she acknowledges that grief is permanent, though it changes shape over time. She allows readers to witness her contradictions, the way she knows John is dead but still imagines his return, the way she resents platitudes about healing yet clings to fragile hope. This honesty is what makes the book resonate so deeply. It validates the disjointed, illogical, and painful reality of loss rather than trying to smooth it into a lesson. As the year unfolds, Didion's focus shifts gradually. Quintana's condition, though precarious, becomes the center of her days. The act of caring for her daughter keeps her tethered to life, even as grief for John remains raw. She continues to revisit their shared past, but the present demands attention, pulling her away from the temptation to dwell entirely in memory. This duality, mourning her husband while mothering her daughter, embodies the complexity of human resilience. We do not neatly move from loss to recovery. We live within contradictions, carrying grief alongside ongoing responsibilities and loves. The title itself, The Year of Magical Thinking, encapsulates both the memoir's content and its philosophy. Magical thinking is not merely superstition, but the mind's survival mechanism, the refusal to accept an unbearable truth all at once. Didion shows how her irrational beliefs, saving John's shoes, avoiding certain choices, were necessary steps in processing grief. They were part of the slow adjustment to a reality that could not be comprehended immediately. In this way, the memoir becomes not only her story, but a guide for readers, reminding them that there is no wrong way to grieve, that the illogical and contradictory are intrinsic to survival. By the end of the book, Didion has not found closure, but she has documented the journey of a year in which she lived suspended between disbelief and acceptance. Her words serve as both a testament to her love for John and a map of the terrain of grief. She captures how mourning is not simply an event, but a state of being that reshapes one's entire world. What endures through the memoir is the power of love, memory, and writing itself as tools for enduring the unendurable. Ultimately, the Year of Magical Thinking stands as one of the most profound explorations of loss in modern literature. Its brilliance lies in its refusal to sanitize grief, its unflinching portrayal of how death rearranges not only the heart, but the logic of the mind. Didion invites readers into her raw vulnerability, and in doing so, she creates solidarity with anyone who has loved and lost. The book does not tell us that things will get better or that time will heal all wounds. Instead, it acknowledges the truth. Grief becomes part of us, woven into who we are, shaping the way we live and remember. Through her memoir, Didion shows that the act of writing, of giving words to what feels unspeakable, can itself be a form of survival. She transforms private anguish into shared experience, allowing readers to recognize themselves in her honesty. In the end, the magical thinking she documents is not just a symptom of loss, but a testament to love's persistence, the unwillingness of the human heart to let go, and the fragile yet resilient ways we endure the unimaginable. And that's it. Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking. Thanks for listening to Book Nibbles. If you enjoyed this bite-sized book, don't forget to subscribe for more quick, insightful summaries. See you in the next nibble.